Jitterbugs versus Lifers. Hello everybody, thank you for watching True Prison Stories. I was asked to do a video on how the lifers, convicts, older convicts, known as convicts for some people, get along with the younger inmates. And are the younger inmates causing problems for the older inmates? Well, the answer is yes. And let me make something perfectly clear right up front. The best explanation you could get on this topic would be from an inmate serving life in prison. I'm going to tell you what I've seen from the correctional officer side and what I've been told during interviews and things later when I became a prison inspector. So remember, I'm not staying behind the bars 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so I don't know everything about how a lifer feels about a young inmate or jits, but I'm going to tell you what I do know. A jitterbug, or a younger inmate, which is called a jitterbug many times, they're called jits for short, G-I-T, is a young inmate that acts on impulse. Very unpredictable. They could go off at any minute for any reason. And a lifer, of course, is someone serving a life prison sentence known as all day for prison terms, serving an all-day sentence, or a life jolt. Now, a lot of lifers are in there and they know they're serving a mandatory quarter, a 25-year mandatory sentence, and some are actually serving a life without parole sentence. So being a lifer, you can be from 25 to actual life in prison. Either way, you're in there an awful long time, and life can get tough if you're dealing with these young inmates. Alaska has been having some issues lately with younger inmates attacking older inmates and lifers. Let me tell you how this works from what I've seen. A lot of the older inmates, the lifers, the convicts, the hardened inmates that have been around a while and they know the game, they use a lot of the young inmates to do their dirty work and go out and be mules for their drugs or take care of their business or run errands for them or be their bitch, excuse my language. But in a lot of cases nowadays, we're getting these young inmates in prison that have a very, they have what they want to put on as a very hard outside cover. They're tough. You can't whip me. I'm from area code 813. I'm from area code, 305 down in Miami, and we'll kick your ass, that kind of attitude. That's what gets a lot of these lifers upset. Them coming in with that outside facade of being tough when on the inside they're just cream puffs. And, they're going to get the good old knockout from the lifer inmate or the convict, But here's what makes these young inmates dangerous. They act on impulse because they show on the outside they're tough, but really they're cream puffs on the inside. They'll join a gang to get protection. And some of these gangs most gangs have some type of initiation. And what we're seeing lately in some of the prisons is young inmates being initiated into a gang, and part of the initiation is do a hit on a lifer or do a hit on an older inmate. Maybe that gang wants that older inmate out of the way because he is the leader, and we need to get rid of him. And it's not like the old days, folks, when two inmates just start fighting. These jits or younger inmates, they'll sneak up on you and attack you from behind. They'll stab you. It only takes 1 to 3 seconds to stab somebody. That's one thing I did want to say, that when people say, why aren't the officers protecting the inmates? Well, let me tell you something. 24 officers assigned on duty, 1,100 inmates. It takes 1 to 3 seconds to get up and stab somebody, pass the shank off, and that shank is gone in 10 seconds. kind of hard to protect these inmates when we're so short-staffed. You know, the prison is a battlefield, unfortunately, and we don't have enough officers to watch every nook and cranny within the prison. That's why a lot of these young inmates are getting away literally with murder. And it's a shame that this happens, but right now there's nothing we can do about it. The applications coming in are very few right now. I've read several articles just recently where we don't have enough applications. We've got to go out and get more people apply to be a correctional officer. So staff shortage does not help the issue with these young inmates that are going off. They're impulsive, and they'll do just about anything to get what they want because they don't think ahead. Whereas an older inmate, a lifer inmate, they've got a long time to do in prison, and they will think ahead. They're actually much easier to work with, in my opinion, from my experience as a correctional officer, because when you ask a lifer or an old-time convict to do something, like we need to mop the dorm and we need to get this done, we need to get that done, they get it done. And some of these young jits don't want to do anything but sleep. And then when they wake up, they want to go cause trouble. They want to go deal drugs. They want to do gang activity. They want to fight somebody. They want to show how tough they are. It makes it rough on any inmate, not just a lifer, but any inmate that goes in prison that just wants to do their time and get out of prison and go home. These jits make it real hard because you don't want to catch an outside charge, but what do you do when a young inmate bows up at you, threatens you with a weapon, with a homemade weapon, gets up in your face and says things to you? Well, you want to knock them out, and that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you get caught knocking them out, sometimes you don't. If you get caught knocking them out, both parties are asked, you know, the young inmate is asked, do you want to press charges on the inmate that knocked you out? Lots of times they'll say no. They are smart enough not to press charges against another inmate because that would make them look very bad. You know, that would make them look very bad in front of all the inmates, not just the young inmates and not just the gangs. But it does make life rough, and I would ask anybody that wants to know further information about how lifers feel about these young inmates coming in trying to take control, raising Cain in the dorms, destroying property that the inmates are given to use for themselves. If you can ever talk to somebody who was in prison for a long time and you get the chance to talk to them, ask them how'd they deal with these young inmates. I was a correctional officer, a probation officer, and then later a prison inspector. I wasn't in the prison living with these jits. I, as an officer, if I saw a jit going off, I could just take care of the problem. You know, lock them up, write them up, do what I had to do. I didn't have to live with them. So I appreciate the request for me to talk about this. I hope I gave you a few examples of how jits are in prison. But as I said, to get the true feeling of what it's like to have to live with them, I wouldn't be able to answer that question for you. And I try to be honest in everything I put on here. You know, I always say on my channel, I put the good, the ugly, and the bad. And if I know if I know about the topic, I'm going to tell you about it. And if there's something I don't know about the topic, I'm going to be straight up and tell you I don't know everything about the topic. But thanks for watching. Please keep the requests coming. I just had one on the New Mexico prison riot, and I put that up last week. That was also a request. And I did know a lot about that topic. Thank you very much, and take care. Gary York, True Prison Stories.